I would like to thank everyone who came along with me. We will have a rapid test on the Mobile Arena channel. This monster came out of the box. This is the top-of-the-line device called Ulefone Armor 29 Ultra. I'll say it the other way around. And this is an interesting phone because on the one hand, it's really expensive. And on the other hand, if you look at the specifications, you'll say, well, they've put everything they can into this. Now, after it's been on the market for a while, it's like, well, like 780. It costs in euros with foreign orders, which is a little less than 300,000 forints. And in return, you get a huge brick of a pig, which is mainly so big because it has a 21,200 milliampere hour battery, which is quite large. And the box is not small either, which is not only because this 688 gram thing had to fit in, but also because it has a 120 watt charging head, which produces, it comes with a case and a screen protector if you want it. So it's actually a pretty rich basic package. The box itself is heavy, the phone is heavy, so it really is a heavy item. At the same time, if you look at the specs, you can say that it looks like they put everything into it. But before we get to that, let's take a look at the exterior of the phone. On the one hand, what's important about it is that it's apparently a reinforced housing with smaller bezels everywhere protecting the displays, because we have two displays. On the Zello, we have a 6.67-inch AMOLED 120Hz display with full HD resolution. Despite this, the reflow reader is not under the display on the Today page. This is not a problem when you think about the conditions in which you use the device. And on the back, there is also a circular 1.04-inch 340 pixel diameter display, which rear display is basically widgets, notifications, and, if you want to take a picture of yourself, because the front camera preview image is visible on this small rear round display. So it looks very good from the outside, but we have a couple of problems. I'll list the positives first. It has a check connector. It has two programmable buttons. It has a pogo pin connector for various external accessories. Ulefone itself sells such things, such as the endoscope, and there is an infrared port on the top that can be used as a remote control. And what's even better is that you can insert not only two nano SIMs, but also a micro SD from the side SIM tray, which you may not really need because this device comes with 1 terabyte of storage and 16 gigabyte of RAM. So it's a big deal. If you look at the back, the circular display, which is touch sensitive, obviously catches the most attention, but there are cameras and sensors. On the one hand, there's an LED flash. There's infrared photography, which is used to take videos and pictures in the dark. And it has two 50 megapixel cameras, the main camera and the old-fashioned one. And there's a 64 megapixel infrared one, which is for night photos. You'll find a giant camping torch on it, which lights up like an animal. And it has a red-blue light, which can also be accompanied by a sound effect. And then it sirens and flashes at the same time. Hallelujah. But what's strange is that it only has one speaker. It has a huge housing. Really, you could probably fit 10 speakers in here, but instead the sound only comes from the bottom. It's not very good, but it is incredibly loud. A top speaker really would have fit. I think there was room for it. They left it out for some reason, even though otherwise I'd say they really put in everything they could. So what is this everything? Well, for one, we have a MediaTek Dimensity 9400 Plus chipset. This is a beast of a chipset. The Vivo X200 Pro has this. So this is a really powerful chipset. Every game, every application runs on it without a single stutter. So from that perspective, it's really on point. We already mentioned the 1 terabyte of storage. And really, up to this point, you'd say, well, this is solid. But then you turn it on and start using it. And, well, a little extra tidbit for this rapid test is that we recently visited the Ulefone headquarters in Shenzhen, and we talked to the developers there. Because you see, the biggest problem with Ulefone phones is always the software, and that's still the case here. It runs stock Android 15 with very minimal Ulefone extras. You can tell what's a Ulefone extra because it's not properly translated into Hungarian, or it stays in English, like the side buttons and similar things, or it's just poorly translated. Well, all of that is a Ulefone extra, and there's also a toolkit in it with things like a protractor, an altimeter, a compass, and other similar little things. It's not a big deal. Otherwise, it's stock Android, and well, we don't know how many updates it will get. Whether it will get Android 16, 17, 18, 19, or anything else in the near future, security updates will probably arrive. They confirmed this on the spot at their headquarters when I asked. But otherwise, I feel that it's a cobbled together software again. And I confronted them with this very problem. Why does it have such a cobbled together software with these vague update promises? And the answer was that they know it's a problem. They know they have to deal with it. And they are currently hiring people who will hopefully solve this situation. But anyway, let's face it, they don't have a lot of people. And, well, the big problem for small manufacturers is that the smaller the number of units you produce, the more expensive the license fee for the new Android version is when you divide it per phone. And this causes them problems because they have to build it into the price. But this isn't a cheap device anyway, so I think it would have been affordable. Now, the other problem is the camera. On paper, this is a damn good camera system. It has an IMX989 Sony sensor, a 1-inch sensor. This is a top-tier sensor. But compared to that, the pictures you take with it, well, they are average at best and below average at night. And obviously, I had to ask them the question, excuse me, why do you use such an expensive camera sensor if you're incapable of writing an algorithm for it? If you can't write one, buy one from the market. Algorithms exist. But they said, yes, we know this too, and we're going to hire people for this, but sorry, this is all it can do for now. And it's one thing that with the main camera, which is supposed to be more capable, you can't take very good shots. But unfortunately, with the ultra-wide camera, which is a Samsung sensor and is also 50 megapixels, the problem is that they didn't even program it to bin the images to 12.5. It will always shoot in 50 megapixels, which is completely unnecessary. If you then manually resize it to 12.5 megapixels, you're roughly okay in terms of photo quality during the day, but at night the result will be very weak. And it's the same situation with video. It can supposedly even do 8K, but the image quality that comes out of it, the video's detail, color accuracy, and stability are simply not worthy of the sensors that Ulefone buys from the market and puts into this phone. So from this perspective, it's quite a disappointment. The same goes for the front camera, which is also 50 megapixels. It also takes selfies in 50 megapixels, which is unnecessarily large, and the focus is always somewhere behind the person's face. And they added a little splash of AI, which can do things like object removal and other such little silly things. But unfortunately, our experience is that this AI is not yet on the same level as the big manufacturers, whether it's Apple's, Google's, or Samsung's AI systems or capabilities. So the result won't be very good if you start messing around with the AI. So the situation is that this is a very tough, very durable, very large phone. With this battery, you practically don't need to look for a charger for 5 days. So it really lasts a very long time. If you have its own charger, it charges this monstrously large battery to 100% in 90 minutes. But beyond the fact that Ulefone can clearly assemble hardware from various components, they put spectacularly little energy and effort into getting the software part right. And this is currently the problem with every Ulefone phone. Now, precisely because I've visited them, not just at the headquarters, but also at the factory, I can say that it's clear that they can handle the exterior, the design, the durability, the toughness at a high level. So it's not just that there's a very well thought out workflow in the factory, but they also have their own lab where they test these devices and test their durability. Up to this point, everything is completely fine. And the whole thing falls apart when the software is added, because you can see that on the software side, they simply can't compete. And they are relying on currently putting lots and lots of very enticing specification data on the box about the super camera, the giant battery, the fantastic display, the infrared capabilities, and everything else you can think of. And then beyond that, they don't delve into the APIs, they don't delve into the parameterization, the algorithms, so they simply don't adapt the stock Android to the hardware set that they actually use in this device. And the result of this is that you have a phone that, based on its features and capabilities, is destined for much more than what it actually represents under the name Armor 29 Ultra. Not just because the components in it are much more powerful than what they can utilize with software, but also because it actually has some great ideas. This rear display, I would have thought it was a stupid idea, but it's actually quite useful because if the phone is face down on the table, you can still see what's up. And if you just want to check calendar data or which way the compass is pointing in the form of widgets, you can do that. So it's actually a neat thing. Plus, this is also protected by Gorilla Glass 3, just like the front. And this back part also has bezels that serve to prevent this display and the whole camera set from breaking. They buy the giant camera sensor, which is obviously quite expensive. So they try to do everything to make their phone look like a wonderful device, but then it falls flat on the software. So my verdict is, dear Ulefone, now that I've visited you and we've gotten to know each other, and I've shown you the same problems that I've just listed here, I am really rooting for you to be able to solve these, not just the updates, but the optimization as well, especially when it comes to the camera, because if you can put this together, and I know it's expensive because you have to pay a bunch of people, but if you can put this together, then Ulefone can stand out from that B category of Chinese manufacturers, where there are plenty of other rugged phone manufacturers, you know, the 8849, Doogee, Blackview, and Ukitel, so I could go on listing them, Kubot. But as long as you don't dedicate enough resources, energy, and financial sacrifice to writing a normal, proper software for it, then this Ulefone will also be, well, a missed opportunity, which I'm sure a few people will love despite this because it's really powerful, very durable, and it lasts a very long time. But if you want to make a truly good phone, then you should be dealing not just with the hardware, but with the software as well. We have a detailed review on Mobile Arena. I'll put it in the description, which contains measurement results, test photos, and test videos. If you're interested in more about the phone, then go ahead and read it. And if you feel that this was useful content and you'd like to watch more but you're not subscribed, then here's your chance and you can take care of that. And for those who were already subscribed, thank you very much for your attention. Keep up your good habit and we'll see each other very soon in a future video. Bye everyone.